Hey, welcome to Steve McGrath's Basscraft. So yeah, it's episode 20 of the podcast. Absolutely amazing that we've got this far, 20 episodes in. I have a very bad habit of getting distracted easily by things and moving on to a new project without even giving the one I'm working on a fair chance. So I'm really happy that we've gotten this far. And yeah, I'm going to keep going with it. And thanks a lot for all your messages of support, buying the merch and all that. And on that, I'm actually sold out of the first t-shirt, the first run of the Basscraft schematic t-shirt. So I'm opening up again. I'm going to put the pre-orders up today and do another batch of them. So order it now because I'll have all the sizes on the site. But once I have them ordered, I'll only have a few sizes available. So link is in the bio. And yeah, it's been a really cool week. Obviously, you know from the name of this episode, we have Rich Brown on, and it so happened that he was doing a lecture in the Cork School of Music, a masterclass in bass, last week, and Noel Barrett, who is a bass lecturer in the college, was so kind to send me a message and say, hey, do you want to come on and sit in on the masterclass with Rich? And I did, and it was awesome. It was like, I think it was like 3 hours, and it was amazing just hearing him talk. And you'll hear a lot of the stuff that he talked about in the masterclass in today's podcast, but not everything. So you jump over to Rich's YouTube channel to get even more lessons and stuff. I've been working on some of his material myself. I've been doing these kind of permutations, which he really likes. Now he goes into some detail with this, like doing all different ways of doing it. So this is just a 3-note version I'm playing, but you can spend years on this. So check out his channel to do that. So it sounds something like this. Yeah, so me and Rich, I was hard to know what category to put him in. Like, where do I have subcategories for all these podcasts, like educators and content creators and solo bass? Because he does all these things. He wears all the hats. So we kind of covered everything in this. It was real fun chat, and hope you enjoy it. Of course, check Rich out at all the links. They're also in the bio. He's got a Bandcamp where he has his band releases, his solo releases. He has his YouTube channel where he's putting up educational material all the time. And yeah, catch you in a minute and hope you enjoy the episode.
And then I thought, well, I got to do something. So I just started, putting lessons up on YouTube to keep myself busy. And it's been great. The response has been amazing. And the channel has grown so much over the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's been an absolute blessing. And then from that, I got an offer from the fine folks at No Trouble to contribute to their online magazine every couple of weeks. And I'm just getting ready to take over the advanced lesson column for Bass Player magazine. So
cool. That's it. And this is all kind of coming from your YouTube channel.
It's just
I have to
mind-blowing.
say, I've really enjoyed the channel. I've been going through it the last few weeks, and I've been doing some of the lessons, and I love how long they are. It's funny, when I put up my own stuff, it is quite chopped up and succinct, I suppose, but I like the long format thing. But I think that only someone who's been teaching for so many years can do the long format thing, and because you've got that muscle exercise so well that you can just do that.
I've been teaching sort of one-on-one lessons at college and recently in the last few years online, but for so many years. And I feel like I've gained this ability to establish a rapport with a student pretty quickly. So now I just put that in front of a camera. And I've done that as well with Scott's bass lessons, where you have to sort of speak into a camera and pretend it's somebody that you really want to, that somebody's sitting right across from you that you really want to connect with. So that's what's happening in the channel now.
True, but on SPL, the courses are they're a lot shorter. You wouldn't get away with spending maybe 20 minutes on one exercise, which is cool on YouTube. You can do that because I suppose the way SPL is, they couldn't have the courses being 3 hours long and each video being 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah. But it's good. I mean, I felt like I wanted to put together lessons that would be great for beginners, but at the same time pose a challenge to more advanced level students or just musicians who wanted to get into some different ideas. It's difficult finding that sort of hybrid of where everyone is being addressed at the same time. But so far the response has been great. And
yeah, I think I have some controversial opinions myself when it comes to the education at the moment. It's almost a lot of people when they're going online, they think you have to learn jazz to get to the next level, but there's still so much there without touching jazz. Like you did a pentatonic lesson, and like that, everyone should learn that no matter what style you're in. So there is still loads of things you can do, and you don't have to go near walking bass or jazz sheets or anything.
I could not agree more. And, I teach at Humber College here in Toronto. And it's mainly the program is mainly a jazz program, but the students aren't really jazz musicians. So, over the course of the year, they'll study like all the sort of jazz theory and things like that. I'm not as well versed in that because I didn't come up in that tradition. So usually when students study with me, they get a bit more of a variety of different kinds of music and things like that, as much as I love jazz. But it's great to see, like, when the end of the year comes around and students start to present their own music and do their own performances, that a lot of it, has nothing to do with jazz. You see a lot of like neo soul and funk and even some metal bands, like traditional country music. I mean, this is what the students are really sort of doing to express themselves. And a lot of times it's the furthest thing from jazz.
Definitely. And so are you still with SBL? Are you still doing lessons with them, or are you kind of on your own now?
I think that's kind of up in the air. That's sort of up to Scott. Like every once in a while, he'll send me a little message and ask me if I'd be into doing something for the site. We've talked about some stuff for the future, but he's got so much going on.
I know. I'm a lifetime member. I don't know. I got lucky. I don't think they'll be doing the offer again. It was years ago. It was so cheap, like, and so I dip in every now and then. They have a new thing going on with mentors, but I always enjoyed your seminars when you used to do them on it. Like that was a fun feature because they were so long. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are always fun. I mean, I suppose I am an official sort of faculty member at Scott's Bass Lessons. But again, he's got so much going on. I just sort of wait for the phone to ring and see if he's got something for me.
And the column you're doing with Bass Player Magazine, is that for the print magazine that you're doing at Coleman?
It is. Yeah. Man, I'm really excited about that. I mean, I remember being like 18 years old working at a music store and picking up Bass Player Magazine every month just to check it out. And
yeah, I have a stack of them here. Like I can't throw them away, even though I don't read them anymore.
Yeah,
like, they have something about them.
Yeah, it's so surreal to me to have this opportunity. So, in fact, I just sent in my first sort of article last night, and I'm waiting to hear the thoughts of the old GM. To see what he thinks about it. It's like,
and are they giving you a brief, as in we want advanced stuff, or are you just taking whatever you think you should give to them?
Yeah, I mean, but that's the only thing that they've said. They want these to be advanced lessons, and they've left the rest up to me. So I kind of have carte blanche within those sort of parameters, which is great because I get to talk about what I want, and I really feel like the idea that I was talking about before of really making a connection with a student. I feel like I want that to come across in the articles as well. Even though it's print, I want people to feel motivated by these lessons. So hopefully there'll be a lot of readers and they'll be somehow better bass players or more inspired or,
I'm sure they will. Did it take you long to get the teacher mindset going? Like I have a lot more bass students at the moment, and I think I taught acoustic guitar for years, but I'm mainly teaching bass now. I find bass a much harder instrument to teach because to explain what I've been doing for years, did it take you long to? And you have all these really cool exercises, and I'm only starting to build up my own exercises. Did you always have the exercises kind of for your own personal routine, or is that just something that started happening as you had students?
I always had these exercises because I didn't go to school for music. I mean, I didn't go to college, right? I graduated high school and I was like, I'm done with school. This is ridiculous.
Do you have to pay for college in Canada actually, or is it free?
Well, you get student loans, so you have to
Okay.
pay those back, but
Not free then.
not free. Yeah, for me, because I taught myself to play the instrument, I learned all these different exercises from studying different videos, like the old Jaco Pastorius VHS.
I was actually watching that. Remember you said you wouldn't be on for a minute. I said I was gone down a YouTube hole.
Yeah.
I was watching the Jaco video for the first time in years.
Yeah, that was, I got that when I was maybe 18 or 19, and I did all the exercises like daily. But then through those exercises, I started to ask myself questions like, what would happen if I tried this instead of this? And maybe if I move this around to some different things. And when I started teaching, it was very uncomfortable for me because I didn't feel like all the stuff that I had taught myself was applicable for other students who really wanted to learn, different things. But that, I was so wrong about that. Like now I realize that this is the stuff that taught me how to play. So why not pass that on to other people? So for years and years, I had to get over this real feeling of imposter syndrome where I felt like I don't know what to teach people, but it's been there this whole time. And I just didn't think it was valuable enough to someone else. But now I realize it is. It's
a different skill. Like watching the Jaco, I've read the book, and he says himself he wasn't a teacher, but people went to him and they just hung out, and it was a bit of fun, and they got to see him being amazing. But the funny thing about watching the Modern Electric DVD is he's just showing what he does, and obviously someone watched it back and made exercises out of everything he did. Like there was no plan for the day of the recording. Yeah. He does this amazing run and it says exercise 10, and he does loads of random stuff, and then it just says that they're exercises, and somehow out of some amazing, it really is a good learning DVD. But Jaco didn't arrive to that session like, okay, here are all the exercises I'm going to teach.
It's amazing, huh? Just and it's kind of cool the way they set that up.
Yeah.
Because man, I learned so much from that video, and I remember walking into a music store with a few friends of mine, and I saw that sitting on the shelf, on VHS, like an old video cassette, and man, I had to have it. And as soon as I put it on, I just picked up the bass, and I was like, oh, I can understand what's going on here. Especially for me, being somebody who didn't go to school for music or didn't really learn to read or learn theory, all that information was easy for me to just connect to, and it helped me in the most invaluable ways. It's amazing.
Well, before the internet, it was amazing to see how he moved his hands so fast, where the harmonics came from. When you're just listening on the CD, you're thinking he was down low and then he was up high. Maybe this is double tracked. I don't know, how does anyone play the bass that fast? So to get to see him do it,
I used to play with this band, Dap Theory, really great band.
Yeah, I was listening to them as well in preparation for this, and you're slapping the bass. I was like, I didn't know you did slap it.
It's funny, I haven't done much of that since. Lord knows why. But we had this residency in Los Angeles. We played, I don't know if any clubs do this anymore, but this was around 2002, 2003. We played one club in Hollywood for a month, literally 5 nights a week for 4 weeks. And all these heavy musicians just started showing up regularly. And one of the guys who would show up a lot was Bobby Colomby, who produced that Jaco record.
The book, yeah.
And he had a million stories about, how they'd be sitting in the studio. He told me this one story about how they were sitting in the studio one time listening to the playback of Donna Lee, just the two of them. And the song finished, and, the room went silent. And Jocko turned to Bobby and he said, "Bobby, you hear that?" And Bobby was like, "No, what?" Jocko said, "That's the sound of bass cases all over the world closing for the last time."
That's brilliant. Yeah. No, there's some great... Actually, when I bought the book, it came with a CD of interviews with Jacko's dad and a few other people, and some spoken word stuff from Jacko just talking about random stuff.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Maybe someone has it. It's probably put online at this stage, but that was cool. Companion with the book, like, to get this CD, because Jacko's dad, I think he was like a bit Irish. He had a quarter Irish or something, but he was a musician himself. Like, he was singing stuff.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I mean, I read the book, but I didn't get the CD edition of it.
Mine was one of the newer editions because
gotcha.
I was late coming to the Jacko. I wasn't into jazz growing up. I was into like Primus and Metallica and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into Jocko. It's funny, I didn't get into Jocko until like the day he died.
Really?
I turned the radio on, and this jazz program came on. And the host said, "We're going to dedicate the next 2 hours to the music of Jaco Pastorius, the greatest bass player in the world." And I had been playing bass for maybe a few months. So I thought, who's Jaco Pastorius? Maybe I'll check this out. And the first tune they played was Continuum. And my mind was blown. I was like, what is he doing? What is that? How is he getting that sound?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. At the moment, kind of, with the bass zeitgeist or whatever's going on with the bass world, you don't as much hear people sounding like Jaco. It's almost like everyone has decided there's only one Jaco, and like a lot of the people who are coming up, the big names, they're not sounding as like Jaco as, back when he was around. There was a lot of people trying to copy what he does. Like,
I feel like things changed. I feel like things changed when Matt Garrison started to get a little more recognized, because there was a shift in the way that bass players sounded. Because, when Matt came out, like, he was using a lot of like melodic, harmonic, minor scale, that kind of harmony. And then Hadrian Farrow, he started to pick that up as well. And then everyone wanted to sound like Hadrian, and the whole bass world just shifted from Jaco to Matt to Hadrian, who really sounds a lot like Matt to me. But that's kind of where it's been going. And now you're hearing a lot more straight up just pentatonic patterns.
Yeah, Joe Dart, for example, he's making a career with the pentatonic, and he's killing it at it. Like,
yeah, Joe Dart and Mono Neon and.
Oh yeah, like, he's brilliant. He has some kind of Mono Neon, kind of has more kind of bebop vocabulary as well, thrown in with the pentatonic stuff. Yeah.
It's amazing just to see the way that the bass world is always changing and evolving.
But I think you're unusual that you're a solo bass player, but you play in a band. So I know all the guys who do the solo bass thing, like Steve Lawson and them. Oh yeah, they're able to fill the normal bass player role, but they don't too often. They do their solo bass thing, but you kind of do both, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I love the idea. I love the ensemble. I love the idea of getting together with a group of sort of like-minded musicians and really trying to find that common space in music where everyone is just communicating on the same level and having, the best time doing it. I think, people really respond to that. And then the solo bass thing sort of came later when I just wanted to explore more of the instrument. Like, the main instrument that I play is a 6-string electric bass that was made by my friend Kenneth Lawrence. And, when I got this thing, I just thought, oh, there's so much here, beyond the range of the instrument. There's so much here sonically. And I can get all these different timbres. And also, I listen to a lot of different styles and a lot of different instruments. So I wanted to see if I could emulate those things that I was hearing. And in doing so, I guess I sort of gained a confidence that made me feel like I had something to say as a solo artist.
Yeah.
So it's been a great journey. I'm trying to, I mean, I don't know if I should say this out loud yet, but
It's okay, I can edit that now.
But I'm planning to record, since we're all in lockdown, I'm planning to record another solo bass album over the next couple of months.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Where when you say something, you make it real and it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for that. That's a good reminder.
But I can't pronounce the name of your song, Lua, and another one, Nguyen. How do you say that?
Oh, Nguyen. Yeah.
Nguyen. Yeah. Really nice stuff. Like it's cool, but you don't use a lot of pedals though, do you? Like some of the other solo jazz guys who have a huge pedal board. You're mainly a looper and a nice sound. You get a good solo sound going and you go for it.
Yeah, I like both worlds. I feel like if I present something that's like full of effects and all kinds of processing, I have to do something that is the complete opposite, where you just hear the bass. So I kind of go back and forth. The looping thing is also new to me. It's like a lot of the stuff that I played on my solo album was played in real time. I didn't loop anything. I just sort of went in and played a track and then went back and played another track and did it that way. Is that
the album, Abeng? Is that your solo album?
The solo bass album is called Between Heaviness and Here.
Okay.
And the Abeng album is with my band, the Abeng. So yeah, it's cool to be able to wear these different hats and like want to do a solo thing here or want to experiment with some composition in an ensemble setting, and it's great.
It must have been weird when you started doing that first for audiences as a bass player to just, it's just you and you've no band. You're pretty. Yeah. It's almost like singing. You're naked. You've nothing to back you up, like just yourself.
Well, it's the funny thing is like in both instances, as far as my band and the solo thing, they both happened by accident in the exact same way. Where with my band, it was in 2006. That was our first gig, and there was a jazz festival going on here in Toronto, and the promoter of the jazz festival just offered me a night and said, if you're interested in doing something, I could set up a gig for you here as part of the festival. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And we booked the night. Thing was, I didn't have any music and I didn't have a band. So I had to put that together. That was like the incentive that made me sort of make it happen. And then the exact same thing happened. I didn't really have any plans to do solo performances. And then a friend of mine was opening a yoga school. And she came to me and said, we're doing this big party. It's a grand opening. I wonder if you can just come in and play solo for the
That's
night.
Class. Very open-minded person. Like, I want solo bass.
And I was like, yes, I'll do it. And I didn't have tunes. And I had no idea what I was going to do. Funny thing is, those videos, like where you saw Lua, and there were a couple more, but all those videos are from that very performance. That was my first gig as a solo bass player.
And had you all those compositions in the bag from years of just noodling at home, kind of, or did you get them ready for the night?
Kind of.
Sound check riffs, kind of.
Yes, exactly. Where I just come up with like some little idea, like during a rehearsal or a sound check or something, and I would just think, oh, maybe I should do something with this. So I did, and they turned into these little songs, and then after a while, I thought, well, maybe it'd be a good idea to record this. So I went to a friend of mine, and we recorded the album at their sort of basement studio, and that was it. Like the album came out on a small record label here, which has since gone under. But yeah, I mean, I'm proud of that album. I guess I could say I'm fortunate because I'm proud of the albums that I've put out so far.
would you, for the next album, would you consider just recording it at home, like into your own interface and just doing everything yourself, which you can totally do, like as a bass player?
Yeah, you can. But it's new territory for me. I don't know a lot about mixing and mastering and that whole thing. So, I know I can record, and I have a system, and I have everything set up to do the actual playing and the sort of documenting. But then after that, it's a whole new world for me that I have to sort of figure out.
I have to buy a new mic stand. This thing is driving me crazy. It's like it's just falling the whole time.
I have mine sitting over there. It has the same problem.
I need to do what you do: get the lapel mic and be professional.
I got this for the channel, for the YouTube thing.
Brilliant. What's Toronto like as a music? I watched that TV show, Kim's Convenience. So you get to see a lot of the city. It looks like a real bohemian city from the B-roll they play in the show.
Yeah, I love all that B-roll because it's like every time they go to those clips, I'm like, oh man, I know where that is. Oh,
that's actually what I said to my girlfriend Rebecca. I said, I bet people from Toronto know where all those places are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I even know where the store is, which is great.
What do they just put up the sign for the show, Kim's Convenience, or they leave it as Kim Convenience all year?
I kind of wonder if that's always been there. Like, I see that sign and I just think, man, I've seen that sign so many times, but maybe it's just in my head. That's such a great show. But yeah, I mean, what you see in that show is pretty accurate to what this city is like. And I mean, it's a gorgeous place. It's my favorite city in the world. I can't even imagine calling anywhere else home, And I've been asked many times to move to Los Angeles or New York, and as tempting as it is, and as great as it would be for my career, I just can't see myself living. Well, first of all, I can't see myself living in America again. Like, that's not going to happen.
You spent when you were doing that residency, were you living in San Francisco at the time?
Yeah, we were living in Los Angeles.
LA,
and it's like you leave Earth for a while.
It's a strange town. I've never been there, but some of my friends have been there. I asked them what it was like, and they couldn't really put into words. They just thought it was a strange city.
It's a strange city. And I mean, I don't want to sound like I hated it, but I just can't see myself living there. Toronto is such a beautiful place. It's such an amazingly multicultural community, and everyone sort of lives with everyone. I always say about Toronto, it's like the worst place in the world to be a racist.
That's nice.
But the art scene is like thriving. Everyone knows each other. Everyone respects each other, and there are so many different communities. There's like a great hip hop scene. Of course, there's an amazing jazz scene. There's an indie rock scene that's amazing. And the food here is incredible. Like I just love living here. And there are great venues. There's not a lot of venues, but there are really great venues here that support live music. For
a gigging musician, like you'd be busy every weekend.
Yeah. It's not hard to keep yourself busy living here.
And you're teaching full time as well, like, so you're, when the gigs do come back, you'll be, with all this new stuff coming in, you're going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty insane. I feel like my life is so busy now without going out and playing gigs. I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen when we can finally get out there again.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I have a lot of teaching stuff at the moment and no gigs. So I'm thinking, when I have the gigs, something's going to have to go. Like,
I'm kind of wondering, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I don't know how I'll keep up the YouTube channel. Those videos take a lot of time, like, so I don't know. It's hard to keep them up. It'll be hard when things go back to that's what I'm looking at. What can I do that's sustainable for when the world is back to normal? And there's like distractions, like your friends going to the pub and gigs and everything.
Totally. Does it? So you said it takes you a long time to put a video together? Like,
yeah, I'm quite slow at them. Like, I'd say a day, 2 days work maybe, but you seem to have your style down where you film straight through, and you do an odd cut, but you just cut it, no problem, and you're straight back in.
Well, I kind of learned that from Scott. I like the way he sort of cuts from one thing to the other.
Jump cuts, is that what the
those
pros
jump
call them?
cuts. Yeah. Yeah, he does all those little jump cuts. I thought maybe I should do more of that instead of like doing things like what I just did. You know.
And
So-
any plans to release some, like Janik Guizdala has, you know, he brings out his books, but usually they're just PDFs that you buy. That'd be a really good thing for you to get into, I think.
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I've actually had people offer to put together sort of PDFs and notate some of the videos that I've done. So that's kind of on the it's in the back of my mind right now, but it's definitely it's a possibility that I might look into in the future.
I think it's just kind of people at the they like to support someone. Like I bought Rick Beato's Beato book there a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I haven't even opened it yet, but I was like, you know, I've been watching his channel for years. I'll give him some support.
Yeah, I also feel like, you know, on the other hand, I feel like, you know, I learned this instrument by ear. And I thought about, there are times when I think about like releasing PDFs to go along with the individual videos. And then I just think, well, maybe it's more beneficial to some people if they listen and learn and discover how these patterns form on the neck for themselves without having to look at a piece of paper and understand it that way. Because for me, not being the best reader, I had to really use my ears and my sort of muscle memory. And I find that I'm able to memorize music a little faster. And it's helped me in incredible ways, like not having the music in front of me. So I kind of hesitate when it comes to that idea of releasing PDFs with the videos, because I want people to sort of learn the way that I did so that they can get the same sort of benefits.
Yeah, I don't think they'd get as much from them. Like you're kind of hoping that your people watching it will have the self-discipline that maybe you had. So you're hoping that they won't just get the PDF, fluff through the exercise. I can do that now, move on, which is what generally people do. Like,
you're so right. It's so true. But I feel like when people sit down and really figure it out, they're putting it into their subconscious, and then it's just there.
Even if you just look at yourself, like when you were, well, me anyways, when I was a teenager, playing these lines that I thought I could play, but I was just playing them really badly. I should have put more time in, you know. I thought I was playing these lines and I was killing it, but in hindsight, I don't think I was. Like, I was just learning loads of stuff from tabs and fly. Oh yeah, I can play so many songs. But I wasn't learning the fundamentals and just really getting the songs under my hands. Like,
yeah. I feel like that way you also you do the same thing that I did when I was like learning this instrument, and you ask yourself questions. You get a particular idea under your fingers, and you go, "Oh man, that's cool. What if I tried this?" And it's those questions that lead you to, finding your own voice on the instrument, because those questions are your questions. Those are your individual thoughts that no one else is going to have. So when you do that, that's when you're really building your own vocabulary, which is the exciting thing that I want for people who watch the videos on my channel.
And did you come from a musical family? What were your kind of bass beginnings? Like, what was it? That instrument behind you with the two strings, that wasn't your first instrument, was it?
Not at all. This instrument, this is a gimbri from North Africa, and I'm still learning it. It's such a gorgeous instrument.
Fretless two-string instrument, is it?
Yeah, it's actually three strings, but the bridge is broken on it, so the strings are just kind of like flopping all over the place. Yeah, my dad was not a musician. My parents weren't musicians. My mom sang in church. That was about it. But my dad was like a real sort of record collector. So he would have music on in the house, like all the time. And I grew up with like, old reggae from the 60s and 70s and lots of funk and R&B. And I was really into it. Like, I just love that music. And it led me to sort of, just want to learn how to play it and what made up these ideas and how did they come up with all this stuff. And I guess I was maybe 13 when I decided that this is really what I wanted to do. So, I got an old cheap bass with like really ridiculously high action that you could barely play, and struggled on that, like trying to learn, Police songs and trying to learn like level 42 and stuff like
Those
that.
Police songs are fair hard though. Like I've had a few students saying they want to learn the song, and I was like, okay, it only has 3 notes in it, but I can barely play this song. To get the rhythm right, to get
it's true.
The rhythms in the feel that he does is so hard to nail. And I can look at my playing objectively now, and I was just saying, this is hard. Like it's only 3 notes, but it's really hard.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to get those syncopations and really understand what's going on with the groove. But I don't know, man. I feel like that's the best way to learn music. It's just to sit down and, when I tell people all the time, like there was a period in my life, like right around that time when I was sort of learning the instrument, where I would literally practice for like 12 hours a day.
What did your parents think? Were they like, he's losing it, he's playing too much?
They were really into it. They were really supportive. I mean, it wasn't until like I decided I really wanted to be a professional musician that my dad kind of went, okay, hold on now you're talking crazy. But my mom was always down. She was always like super supportive.
It took me a while for my parents to get to that stage. I have one funny abiding memory. I grew up on a farm, and I wanted to get some time in the shed. So I went down we had an old farmhouse that my granddad used to live in, but no one had lived in it for years. So I went in there to do some practice, and I just started doing my practice, and my father comes in. He's like, come on, we could dose some sheep or some cattle. And I was like, oh, I just can't get any peace. And he's like, I was telling him, I'm practicing. This is my job. I'm a musician.
Yeah.
He's like, whatever, come on. But now he understands. He doesn't understand. He just keeps saying, why are you practicing all the time? You're a professional now. You get paid for this. I'm like, but that's what you do.
That's the funny thing. It's like they think you just can stop practicing once you get to a certain level. Well,
but that's great that they were so encouraging. But
my dad, like, yeah, my dad not so much. But he came around one time. He was like hanging out with some friends and at a bar or something like that, and I guess a local television station had come out and covered a gig that I was playing and put it on the news. So my dad was at this bar with a bunch of friends of his, and the TV was on in the background, and then one of his friends sort of looked up at the television and turned to my dad and was like, hey, isn't that your son on TV? And my dad was like, yeah, I taught him everything he knows. Like, okay, sure.
That's cool though to see so it's not much different in Toronto. If you're on the telly, you've made it. Like,
you made it. That's it.
He's going to be okay. It's unfortunate in life the way it goes, that isn't it? Like you have to be so successful for people to accept you following your vocation. But I don't know. Everyone should at least try and fail at their vocation and then fall back on something else. Like that. If I had kids, that's what I'd say. Look, fail at what you like, and you can always do something you hate.
But then, you kind of have to redefine what success is, because, I mean, I am by no means a household name. I'm not like, on the cover of magazines or anything, that I'm not winning polls or anything. But, this is what I do for a living, and the fridge is full and the lights are still on. So to me, that's a success.
That is though. That's all. Sure. What else? What more do you want? You get to play the bass for your living.
Yeah.
And you get to live in Toronto.
It's the greatest job in the world. It really is.
And if you love it, I'm sure you love practicing and the process of getting better and all that. So that's the important thing. Like,
I feel like that's something that I really want to get across to not just my students, but to everyone. Like, you really have to enjoy the process. You have to love the sound of the instrument that you're playing and really be into the every aspect of it. Really be into failing. Really be into sounding like garbage for a little while, because it's kind of exciting to know that this thing that is kicking your butt right now is going to sound amazing if you put the work in. Like, to me, that's super exciting.
Yeah, I did. I spent this year playing with the pick playing.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy where I'm getting with it. I'm putting up videos and I'm doing this real nice palm mute and stuff, and which I couldn't do last year. So it's cool to get a little bit of progress like that,
It's an amazing feeling, right? I love it.
It is. And do you find it hard to juggle? Like you have you're Rick Brown, the solo artist. You have, what's your other Abeng, and you have this other one, Rinse the Algorithm.
Rinse the Algorithm, yeah.
So is that your 3 projects, I suppose, apart from your educational stuff?
Yeah.
Or you don't even think about it like that. You're just like, I'm doing this today, or...
I think that's it. I think that's how I have to think of it, because if I think of everything at once, then it's way too overwhelming for me. And I am easily overwhelmed by stuff. So I have to, really compartmentalize and try to think of, focus on one thing at a time. And then, once I feel like a particular idea has run its course, then I have these other avenues that I can explore. So it keeps things interesting. It keeps me from being bored. And it keeps my mind sort of focused on music and developing as I want to develop as a musician and as a composer and, as a bass player and as someone who wants to express themselves through the instrument. I want to be able to do all of that at a high degree. So I keep myself busy with different things.
Do you find yourself comfortable in that position as the band leader, or were you used to more being a sideman before you started leading bands, or did you always kind of take the lead? I'm like that. I always ended up being the leader in whatever band I was in, the guy who booked the gigs and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like my experience as a sideman has really helped in my experience as a band leader, because you work with so many bands and you work with so many band leaders, and you really get a sense of what to do as well as what not to do. Because I've worked with some terrible band leaders and learned just as much of what not to do from them as I have from the great band leaders who really, taught me how to really run a band properly.
Yeah. It's not like the 60s or something anymore. You can't be like this jazz band leader, giving out to all your band members and finding them when they make a mistake.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I feel like I as a band leader, I really want to have some empathy towards the people that I'm playing with and really put them or consider them in every aspect of what's going on. Even in the writing process, I really want to allow for the musicians in the band to, input their own personalities into the music so that they really feel like they're part of it.
But you did on the track Window Seat, you did something cool. The sax doubles the bass solo. Like you're both playing the same line.
Yeah.
Is it the same notes or is there harmonies?
Yeah.
I think it's the same notes.
It's the same notes the first time, and then there's a harmony the second time through.
That was cool, and that was nice if you had to give the sax player the solo with you.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players in the world anyway, so it just, giving him any opportunity to just do his thing is...
But it was that was a moment of you seeing the bigger picture. When I was listening to that, it was in a different sound. It's like, oh, that's catching my ear, because I'm hearing the sax and the bass for a long time playing together.
Yeah, that's something, maybe it was the Yellow Jackets, but that's a sound that I kind of enjoyed. Just hearing the combination of those two voices together, like an electric bass and a saxophone playing the same lines. I think it was the Yellow Jackets that did a lot of that. And maybe that's where I sort of got that idea.
Do you draw your inspiration from all kinds of genres when you're writing your own music? Most definitely.
Yeah. In fact, that song, Window Seat, that was really inspired. Well, there's a story behind that song. That song is really about gratitude. And window seat refers to the window seat of the trains that I used to sort of kind of covet whenever I was on the road in Europe. Because, I'd be on the road and we'd have these travel days, these long travel days, but they were amazing because you'd be on this train and you would look out the window and see the Alps or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would just think this is the most amazing job in the world. I'm doing this. I'm, seeing the Alps. I'm seeing all this beautiful scenery, and then someone's going to give me money at the end of this. Like, it's insane. But at that
go on
time,
a train is luxury as well. Like,
absolutely.
You're just not three guys in a stinking van, like being on a train.
Yeah, and we would, it's funny. I mean, not to be like that guy, but we would always travel first class on these trains, and it was like just the best. And at that time, I had like kind of a regular playlist on rotation when I would be, on these travel days. And one of the songs that I listened to over and over again was a song called "We Live in Brooklyn" by Roy Ayers. So the main groove of Window Seat is based on this song, "We Live in Brooklyn," because that song takes me back to that, back to that window seat, back to where I was just like looking out at all this beautiful stuff throughout Europe. Yeah,
it is class touring in Europe, but I do it in a van, so
it's
not quite as comfortable. I did do a lot of the train there's a thing called Interrail. You can only go on it when you're like 21 or 22. I did that when I was 21. It's like a special train ticket for people that age in Europe, and you get free. Well, it's like €100 or €200, and you can travel all over Europe for 4 weeks for free on all the trains.
Really?
So I did that when I was 21 for 3 weeks, and it was crazy.
That's amazing.
We got in a lot of trouble. There was a lot of shenanigans.
Of course. I would expect as much.
Yeah, but I'm still in one piece, so that's the main thing.
And you have stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably won't tell them here, but I did.
Nice one, man.
But you have a class sense of rhythm, and even I was watching the DAP Theory videos on YouTube, and I was reading the comments, and people were saying he's putting rhythms within the rhythms. Could you give us an insight into how you developed your sense of rhythm? Like, because it is true. I was listening to your bass playing, and you're doing some really cool, funky stuff. Like, and especially with that band, DAP Theory, I suppose you had the space to do it.
Yeah. Well, that was a very sort of unique situation. Well, I guess it was a unique situation in that, a lot of the music that we played in that band was based on a lot of mixed meter and odd time signatures and things like that. And rhythms that I was already kind of familiar with. I mean, I live in Canada, so, Rush was like a big influence, and, getting into that music and hearing odd times for the first time, it fascinated me. So I sort of dove into that world. And then it was through DAP Theory that, we had this system where a lot of the drum parts were through composed. They were totally written out. So we would learn the drum patterns, and it didn't matter what the time signature was, because if you had the drum pattern in your head, there was no way that you were going to, deviate or get off of the rhythm. So the drum patterns became the main melodies, and that allowed me to really stretch, because then you're not counting anymore. That's the thing that people sort of realize, or people have to realize, is that you can't count through that music. I don't want to be counting when I'm trying to play.
Yeah, it's not going to be very groovy or natural, is it? If you're just counting for a whole 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it was a matter of like having this essentially another melody, this drum groove. And then I could do whatever I want against that groove. The other thing is like, everything you do relates to that main melody. So, even if I'm playing something in kind of an odd time, or even if I'm playing something in 4/4, I want to have some sort of rhythmic foundation that allows me to feel the largest space within the groove. So, once I do that, even if I'm hearing something in 4/4 that I can count in half time, or I can count even slower, like a full bar can be one beat. All that space in between is sort of up for interpretation. I can subdivide that in any way that I please. So, that comment about putting rhythms within rhythms, that's actually quite true. Like, because now I see a larger space. So, if you have a tune that's in 4, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'll just hear this. Right?
Yeah.
So all that space happening between the beats can be anything, like anything, which makes it fun for me because, you know, you can really get into all these different subdivisions and note groupings and so many possibilities as opposed to me going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3.
And do you think in like conical or that's new system I was only getting into recently through teaching really, Kodai, did you ever hear of him? Kodly. He's like this music educator who studied like Indian rhythms and all the other ones and came up with his own system for teaching kids how to count. So it's like ta, ti, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like conical in that way. Like,
yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
But you don't work with that. You're still in the classic 1-y and a 2-y and a, that kind of way of thinking of the beat.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to learn it and forget it because you have to know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to forget about what it is. It has to become part of your thing. So the 1-y and a 2-y and that's always there, but I'm not thinking 1-y and a 2-y and I just realize that those are options for me in the rhythmic space that I have. Which sounds kind of vague and a little like...
No, it's actually, funny enough, another guest I had on, Rennie Fluxenheier. I don't know if you watched the Bass the World channel. Do you know that channel?
Oh, yeah, of course.
And he has this really nice beard and he always wears a hat. So I really was digging his playing. So I was like, what would people get into to be like you? And he just said he just works on his inner pulse for hours and hours for years. And that was pretty much his entire shed time. Was just working on his inner pulse, which I found interesting. So, okay, so you weren't transcribing loads of cool licks and all that kind of stuff. You were literally just getting your inner pulse strengthened. So I think that's interesting for people to hear, like, because they think you have to be learning all this crazy fancy stuff to get to being a better musician. But you kind of have to have the fundamentals first, don't you? Like,
you definitely do. Having the fundamentals is key, and I guess that's the same with anything. But I feel like, you know, again, once you have that understanding, you can go anywhere. You can do anything. And that's always the exciting thing for me, like being able to explore what else can happen once you like have a full understanding of a particular idea. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about like asking questions, because then once you have that, those questions will come to you where you just want to experiment and go, what if? It's the what ifs. All those what ifs that essentially make us who we are, right?
Yeah, well, that's where you become an interesting musician to listen to, because you're exploring new kind of ideas yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, and I love the fact that that's never going to stop. I love the fact that I'm always going to be a student of music for the rest of my life. Like,
do you think when you're doing like a pentatonic, do you think like, like I don't really think like that, and I know Victor Wooten had this thing. He was like, how many keys are there? And he asked, and everyone said 12. And he said, there's 24. There's the 12 major and the 12 minor keys. But when I'm playing a G, what was it going? Oh yeah, a G major, a G minor pentatonic and an A flat major pentatonic. It's the same thing to me. They're just...
Absolutely.
I don't think of them as minor or major. They're just the same group of notes, and I'll use them wherever way I want them. Like,
yeah, totally. Like I feel, I mean, I know that there are 12 keys or 24 keys or whatever, but I don't really think in those terms. Like, again, I'm always trying to see the largest phrase. So, I usually think of things as just being one sound. And because I've put in all this work to get a real deep sort of understanding of the fretboard, if I hear something, if I hear a chord or hear a note, I will, put my hand down and play one note or press one note of the fingerboard. And then all this stuff just starts to sort of light up. I know where everything is in relation to what I'm hearing through all the work that I've done previously, like working on scales and doing all those sort of, doing all those exercises on one scale and then transferring it to the minor scale and then, different sort of diminished scales and all that business.
When it comes to playing music, you kind of have to sometimes leave the shed behind and just feel it, I suppose.
Well, you know, I feel like that's an important part of my practice. Like when I practice, I usually warm up with a particular idea, and then the bulk of my practice is focused on, you know, learning whatever I have to learn, whether it's like a new idea that I want to implement into my playing, or, you know, learning music for a gig or whatever. But there's always an important part of my practice where after all of that is done, I just try to make music on my own without an agenda, and just try to work on a few things. I'm working on my ability to react to a sound. So I'll play something and then react to that, and then try to see if I can play what I'm hearing in response to what's being sort of put out. So I'm working on musical instinct, and really just trying to get a better sense, like a better relationship with the instrument, so that I know exactly where things are going to be. And, you know, it helps when I get out on the bandstand, because then I have this sort of sharper musical instinct that allows me to react to other musicians when they play something. So that's, you know, that's a real important thing for me. Like at the end of my practice session, I'm always just trying to create something from a real sort of honest place where there's nothing else that I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about playing this scale or playing, you know, some hip thing. I just want to be able to react.
And what does your practice regime look like at the moment? You're not getting in the 12 hours you got in as a teenager, I'd say.
No, that's for sure. You know, I try to put in a couple of hours a day, and even that's a bit of a challenge. But that's what I'm doing. Like lately, I found this video that talked about Barry Harris's chromatic scale, which would take way too long to get into right now. But
I'll stick it up and people can Google it themselves.
It's the heaviest thing I've ever seen, I think, because chromaticism is something that I've been trying to work into my playing for so long, and it's been a real struggle for me. And this scale really breaks things down in such a cool way. Like
even the name kind of almost makes no sense, because if someone said a chromatic scale, I just imagine you just go one note at a time.
Yeah.
One fret at a time, and then you have chromatic scale.
It's so cool the way that this scale is set up. It's absolutely amazing. So that's kind of what I've been shedding. Like, so I'll do the thing where I really want to get my fingers and also my brain into like a good mindset where I can feel like I can connect to the instrument and create and be productive. And once I've reached that place, then I'll go into, in this case, I'll go into like learning more about this chromatic scale. I mean, all in all, it's about 2 hours.
And are you still absorbing vocabulary, or are you kind of at that stage where you just want to have your own voice and find your own vocabulary?
I feel like at this stage of the game, I feel comfortable enough to say that I do have my own voice, I think. But I'm always trying to learn more. I'm always trying to add to that vocabulary. I mean, that's what this sort of Barry Harris chromatic thing is all about. Like, I really want to, this sort of gives me a better understanding of the bebop language and chromaticism in general. So I'm always trying to add to the vocabulary, and I'm always trying to get away from, standard sort of licks and, melodic devices that my fingers just sort of automatically play. Sometimes I'll listen to a playback of a solo that I've done, and I can hear all the licks that I play all the time, and it kind of makes me sort of groan a little bit. So
everyone has those licks, like, and even when you play with other players you've been with for years, you can hear their licks that they repeat all the time.
Totally. So I'm sort of in the process of trying to eliminate all of that, so that every time that I play and every time that I solo, I can think more in terms of composition and less in terms of like, oh, I have to play better than everybody else in the band for the next 64 bars or whatever. Like, no, I don't want to have to think about that. I just want to be able to interpret in an honest way and play something that moves people,
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of hard to define what a bass solo is. Like, I really like that Willie Weeks bass solo. Do you know that one?
Which one's that?
It's on is it Donny Hathaway or some? It's on a live album, and it's like a 13-minute song, and he's just grooving on the root, but then he does a lick, and he's kind of having a conversation with himself. And Sean Hurley does a few solos in that vibe, but then you have the other solo bass thing, so it's hard to define what everyone knows what a guitar solo sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I just want to sort of get away from the idea of bass solos and really focus on being more compositional within that space of time. That way my solos are always going to be different and more in the moment. It's a bit of a lofty goal. And
just working in the shed, you'll get there.
Yeah. That's how I feel about it too.
So did you find you grew a lot as a musician in 2020? Overall, obviously everyone had challenges and it was depressing when all our gigs were gone and there was ups and downs. But overall, I think you got a lot out of all this downtime.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a, well, not a bit. It's been a major blessing for me because all these opportunities have come my way that wouldn't have otherwise. So I'm very grateful for that, and I also feel like, as musicians, this has forced us to wear some different hats. We have to up our social media game, and we also have to learn how to produce and record our own music. And a lot of people are resorting to teaching, so we're trying to be better teachers and understand how to do that in an online setting. And so I think the last couple of years has sort of forced us to sharpen our skills in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise. So,
when you're forced to do something, you either, you have to just stand up and do it, don't you?
Yeah, that's sort of been the running theme throughout this interview. It's like when you're forced to do something, you got to do it.
I hope we're inspiring people, or not the other way. They're all going to give up. They're like, I can't do this.
Base cases all over the world closing.
Just one thing popped out in your bio. It says you're a voiceover artist. Could you tell us something about that side of your career?
Yeah, again, that's something that's been
you have got a smooth voice, in fairness, so
why, thank you very much. That's something that's happened over the last few months, where I started doing ads for the local jazz station here. There's a certain ad campaign that they've been running, and I've been doing all the voiceovers for these ads, which has been great, and it's starting to lead to other opportunities. So.
And do you put on the radio guy voice, or do you just speak naturally?
Oh, hell yeah. It's kind of easy to do
at all. You just
it's you. I mean, I don't speak that way normally. I would just that would be kind of embarrassing. But I just sort of crank my level in my headphones. It allows me to speak a little quieter and then have much more of a soothing kind of voice.
A velvety tone.
Yeah, man. Get my Barry White on.
That's fun though, isn't it? And who knows what else could come? You could, I don't know, video game voiceovers or something like that. I want to get the job being the guy with the Irish accent in a video game at some stage.
So do I.
It's a hard one to do, man, to copy. They always get it wrong in Hollywood, the Irish accent.
I'm not even going to try. It's like the Jamaican accent in Hollywood. It's terrible. It's always terrible.
Yeah, they get it so bad.
So bad.
You don't have a very strong Canadian accent, though, because often Canadian people get mistaken for being American when you meet them.
Yeah.
Their accent is really, but yours is quite in the middle,
It's pretty neutral. When I was 9, my family moved to Florida, and we lived in America for a little while. That was a very horrible experience, but a lot of my formative years were sort of spent in Florida. You
just found it hard to being moved to Florida from Canada. It was just too much.
Well, yeah, it was.
Or it's something you don't want to get into. That's okay.
I mean, I could get into it, but it's it's really going to lead us down a road. I mean, it was hard because there was overt racism. I mean,
really.
Yeah, I mean, our house was egged, and
Jesus,
one night our house was smoke bombed. Like, so
And how many years ago was this? Like, wasn't
this would have
the
been like
1900s?
this would have been like early to mid 80s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, what were we talking about? Access.
But luckily, Canada is relatively racism free.
Yeah, I mean, we still have our problems, but it's nothing like what's going on there. I feel like what you're seeing there now is just, a lifting of the cover. That has always been there.
Yeah,
and
it's been simmering, but now it's boiling over.
Yeah, it's always been there. And it's always been swept under the rug. And now people have cameras and, you can't sweep it under the rug anymore. You
can't. Did you see? Oh no, I'm not going to get into this.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Rabbit hole, but it's not really this podcast doesn't get into that kind of stuff.
No.
But no, I really appreciate you coming on, Rich. I've been watching your stuff for years. Like I said, I'm a lifetime member of SVL, but I've actually been just watching your YouTube channel now the last few weeks, and I hope you keep putting up those long form videos because I enjoy them.
I plan to. That means a lot, man. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on. This is really fun.
No bother. Sure, anytime you're in Ireland, hit me up. Come to Ireland, do a solo gig when you get to come back and do those train trips in Europe.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I have over the next couple of weeks, I have two more online things based in Ireland.
Really?
Yeah, I'm doing a master class for the Cork School of Music.
Cork. Okay, yeah, I know my girlfriend goes there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then I have an interview with I'm forgetting her name. You had her before on your show.
Ellen.
Ellen, yes.
Ellen, yeah, for Talking Bass, is it?
Yeah, I've got an interview coming up with her in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
So it's funny. I feel like I'm traveling to Ireland.
And there's also another thing here called the Sligo Jazz Project, and it's run by a bass player. So your phone will probably be ringing at some stage.
Yes.
He'll want you to do
Bring
something.
It on.
He gets some acts. I must get him on. He has an artist in residence every year. So he had Victor. He had Joe
cool.
Dart. He had that Italian guy, not Davey 504, the guy who wears the waistcoat, who's Federico. Is that his name? Something.
Federico Malaman, yeah.
Yeah, so
he's great.
You'll come over here. Well, you do the London Bass show sometimes, don't you? Which is only a stone's throw away, really. Like.
Yeah. I played the Cork Jazz Festival a few years ago. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I play that every year. It's like you can do as many gigs as you want. You could get 10 gigs around the city if you want. Like,
it's so great. We played in this beautiful church. Our gig was in a church. It was great.
Deadly, yeah. Was that what band was that with?
That was with a saxophone player from New York. His name is Rudresh Mahanthappa. Yeah, that was a fun show. It was a fun night. We had a lot of fun. I
actually only found out at the last Jazz Fest 2019, it wasn't on last year, that there was a residence bar for all the bands. And I had the lanyard, but I never knew what it did. But it turns out this bar stays open about 7 a.m, so I'm delighted I never found out about it. That's not a bar that's in that's like a separate bar. It's not in the hotel or anything. It's in the hotel, yeah, in the Metropole, I think. There is a bar. Okay. The bar stays open pretty late. Like there's a festival club or something. Yeah, that's where we were. I remember we went to that bar after our gig and hung out until the wee hours, and there was a killing band playing at the bar. They sounded so good. Yeah, it is a really good festival, so hopefully it'll come back. There's some controversy about it not having enough jazz and stuff like that, but hopefully it'll come back and there'll be a good lineup of decent jazz acts. But it's the kind of non-jazz acts that feed the people who are drinking. There's a lot of blues and stuff. Well, I was playing blues gigs myself. I feel like there's so many festivals all over the world sort of going through that same issue. Well, I think they can work hand in glove, I think so. If it means you can get Marcus Miller, who played Jazz Fest 2 years ago, I think, and at the festival, who cares? If the pubs are doing some bluesy gigs, but if the paid gigs have these amazing jazz acts, I suppose everyone can win, like, and they've a lot of workshops
absolutely.
and these things.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree. And to me, there's only two kinds of music. It's either good or bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
I remember playing the Montreux Jazz Festival a few years ago, like 2004. And, of course there were all these jazz artists, but they had, in this huge, gorgeous theater, they had a metal night. And every night there'd be another metal band. There'd be like Judas Priest playing like the Montreux Jazz Festival.
That's
I thought it was amazing.
And what's the London bass show like? I really want to go, but I can't find a date because I have to make sure I'm not gigging. Every year it's on, I was always gigging. Is it really cool? It looks like great fun.
It's amazing. I was there for the whole festival, like the weekend that it was on, 3-4 days. And Scott brought us out to do. Yeah, he basically had one room where he would have these sort of master classes a couple of times a day. So we would rotate. It was like me and Gary Willis and
Bobby Vega was one
Bobby
of the
Vega, yeah, and Heinrich Linder,
yeah,
from
the
Dirty
Swedish
Loops,
guy,
yeah. Yeah, so we would just rotate, and everyone would go to everyone else's like master
They're
classes.
on SPL somewhere in the site.
Yeah.
All those videos are there. They're not really, people don't know they're there probably, but if you're a member, you can find them. Like,
yeah, it was a great time. I mean, Scott's like, he's the best. He's the best guy.
He's a nice. It comes across his personality. He's a real chill, nice guy. And Leeds is a lovely city. The city he's from. So it's worth going for a visit. It's probably my favorite city in England.
Oh, that's cool. I've been there twice. There used to be this place called the Wardrobe. Scott says it's not there anymore, but man, that was a great room.
So I'll hopefully I might catch you. Would you fly over again for the London Bass Show, or is it a big ask considering you're living in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more than willing to do it, but it's really up to the big boss, Scott.
Well, I'm sure the call will come, and you have a lot going on, which is awesome. So where will people check you out? Do you do much on Instagram, or is it mainly YouTube where you hang out?
Yeah, well, I'm on all of those platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My music is available on my Bandcamp page. I don't have an official website, but Bandcamp is the place where you can really. I have 3 albums that you can buy on the Bandcamp page. And then there's the YouTube thing that I'm trying to.
Any thoughts of maybe doing a Patreon, or are you happy kind of the way things are going at the moment?
Yeah, I have. I've been thinking a lot about doing a Patreon page. I'm just wondering about the perks. That's the hardest part for me.
Yeah, there's 2 elements to it. One, you want to give people value for money, but 2, you don't want to put too much work on yourself, as in like,
that's the thing.
I need to make something this week for my patrons, and I don't have that ready.
Yeah, I mean, if my plate wasn't so full already, I'd be willing to put that time in. But
you could be more relaxed about it. You could kind of have like a bass hang with all your patrons every week or so, live, and it's almost like a private lesson, but they're all there on it. Like,
that's not a bad idea, actually.
So you have to kind of, the way I'm seeing it is, everything we're doing now, we have to imagine it's 12 months down the line and things are back to normality. And can you dedicate all week to doing YouTube videos and stuff when gigs come back? No.
No.
I can't. No one can.
No one can.
You have to be sustainable, is what I'm saying. Like, before I pressed record, I was telling you, for the first few podcasts, I spent 10 hours editing each episode. But now I'm thinking, that's not sustainable. I'm busy. I'm teaching all week and gigging and everything. You have to start thinking of when things get back to normal, I think.
Of course, man. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm trying to like figure out different ways to, keep as much stuff happening as possible, but also keeping that in mind. I mean, we're gonna all be going back to work eventually, so
it's been nice while we had the time.
Yeah,
it'll also be very nice to get back doing a gig.
Absolutely, it's good that we've been able to we as musicians and creatives, we have been able to, find the silver lining in this very dark cloud.
Yeah,
it speaks to our resourcefulness, I guess.
Yeah, well, musicians are nothing but resourceful, that's for sure. We can make a living as musicians. We'll survive anywhere.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Cheers. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we'll chat again.
I would love that. My pleasure, man.